We're going to lead with fiction this month. Okay, first, we've got Animal from Lisa Taddeo. And many of you may have remembered her New York Times bestseller, Three Women, which was nonfiction. Now she's taking a stab at fiction. This book is just out this week. Here's the description. Jonah spent a lifetime enduring the cruelties of men, but when one of them commits a shocking act of violence in front of her, she flees New York City in search of Alice, the only person alive who can help her make sense of the past. In the sweltering hills above Los Angeles, Joan unravels the horrific event she witnessed as a child that has haunted her every waking moment while forging the power to finally strike back. It's a description of female rage at its rawest and a visceral exploration of the fallout of a male-dominated society. I heard Lisa talk about this book. It's set in Topanga Canyon, and she said she set it there because she feels there's a kind of creepy part of the environment there. She said there are always like critters in the woods, and she just thought it was like the perfect place to be setting the book as well. So there we've got Animal. Next up, we've got Should We Stay or Should We Go by Lionel Shriver. Love this cover, a novel with both glasses going each way. When her father dies, Kay Wilkinson can't cry. Over 10 years, Alzheimer's has steadily eroded this erudite man into a lunatic. Surely one's own father passing should never come as such a relief. Both medical professionals, Kay and her husband Cyril, have seen too many elderly parents in similar states of decay. Although healthy and vital in their early 50s, the couple fears what may lie ahead. Determined to die with dignity, Cyril makes a modest proposal. To spare themselves and their loved ones such a humiliating, protracted decline, they agree to commit suicide together once they've both turned 80. When their deal is sealed, the spouses are looking to 3 more decades together, and then they turn 80. Should We Stay or Should We Go has 12 parallel universes, each exploring a possible future for Kay or Cyril. Where they cut their life short, would they miss out? Something terrific would happen, something terrible. What would happen if they did that artificial, we're going to end our lives? So there you go on that one. I think that would bring a lot of great book group discussion is what I'm seeing about this book. Just move this thing up here. Next, we've got The Britneys by Brittany Ackerman. I just loved hearing this book being presented during our book group speed dating event. Matthew just did a great job. Matthew from Knopf did just such a great job of presenting it. It's on sale on June 15th. They're not the most popular freshmen at their Florida prep school, but at least everyone knows their name, the Britneys. Brittany Rosenberg drives a golf cart around her subdivision to meet boys. Brittany Gottlieb insists you can't lose your virginity if you haven't gotten your period. Brittany Tomasi is from New York. Brittany Jensen once threw her tampon into a stranger's swimming pool. She's the greatest person in the whole wide world. As far as the narrator is concerned, even when they're friends group, she and Jensen are not a duo. Her interests may be diverging from her friends, but our narrator's own family life-changing events may be taking shape, events that only years later she's going to have the perspective to see. So there we've got The Britneys. Sounds like a fun summer book. Coming on June 15th is Morningside Heights by Joshua Henkin. Absolutely love this book. It's going to be Bookreporter bets on, and I'm also going to be talking to him next week. In this, Ohio-born Prue Steiner arrives in New York in 1976 after graduating from Yale. She follows in a long tradition of young people determined to take the city by storm. But when she falls in love with Spence Robin, her hotshot young Shakespeare professor, her life takes a turn she couldn't have anticipated. 30 years later, something's wrong with Spence. The great man can't concentrate. He falls asleep reading. What's up? With her daughter Sarah away at medical school, Prue must struggle on her own. And one day, when she's feeling particularly isolated, she meets a man, and the possibility of new romance blooms. Meanwhile, Spence's estranged son from his first marriage has come back into their lives. Arlo, a wealthy entrepreneur who invests in biotech, may be the father's last best hope about how far in the darkness they're willing to go to claim the life you always wanted. This book is brilliantly done. It's a real look at marriage. It's a very honest look at what goes on between these two people. And this book was originally supposed to come out last year, and they held it. And I'm glad they did, because I think Josh can get a lot more attention this year. Now we got Filthy Animals by Brandon Taylor. It's coming on June 22nd. In this series of linked stories at the heart of filthy animals, set among the young creatives in the American Midwest, a young man navigates a series of sexually fraught encounters with two dancers in an open relationship, forcing him to weigh his vulnerabilities against his loneliness. In other stories, a young woman battles with the cancers draining her body and her family. Menacing undercurrents among a group of teenagers explode in violence on a winter night. A little girl tears through the house like a tornado, driving her babysitter to the brink. I must be a child I've babysat somewhere along the way. And couples feel out jagged edges of connection, comfort, and cruelty. I want you to really look at the covers this time as we go round. I mean, I think one is just better than the next. They're brilliant. They're different. They all have some kind of an appeal to them that's going to draw your eye in. But I was particularly looking at how brilliantly done they were this time. And especially, we're going to see no two things that really look alike. Next, we've got Lady Sunshine. Ellen Hildebrand called this a delicious daydream of a book. It's coming on June 29th. It's part of our summer reading feature. So if you want an opportunity to win this book, make sure you check out our summer reading contests that happen on days during the summer, Mondays through Thursday. You either have to sign up our newsletter or check the site to see which contest you can enter to win. So this is coming on June 29th. For Jackie Pierce, everything changed the summer of 1979 when she spent 3 months of infinite freedom at her bohemian uncle's sprawling estate on the California coast. As musicians, artists, and free spirits gathered at the sandcastle for the season in pursuit of inspiration and communal living, Jackie and her cousin Willa fell into fast friendship, testing their limits along the rocky beach and in the wild woods until the summer abruptly ended in tragedy and Willa silently slipped away into night. 20 years later, Jackie unexpectedly inherits the sandcastle and returns to the iconic estate for a short visit to ready it for sale. But she reluctantly extends her stay when she learns that before her death, her estranged aunt had promised an up-and-coming producer that he could record a tribute album to her late uncle at the property's studio. As her musical guests bring the place to life again, Jackie begins to notice startling parallels to that summer long ago. And when a piece of the past resurfaces and sparks new questions about Willa's disappearance, Jackie must discover if the dark secret she's kept ever since is even the truth at all. So what happened before and how's she feeling now? Next, we've got Dear Miss Metropolitan. This is by Carolyn Farrell. It's coming on July 6th. Fern seeks refuge from her mother's pill popping and boyfriends via Soul Train. Gwyn finds salvation in the music of Prince, much to her congregation's dismay. And Jessenia, miles ahead of her classmates at her gifted and talented high school, is a brainy and precocious enigma. None of this matters to Boss Man, the monster who abducts them and holds them captive in a dilapidated house in Queens. On the night they're finally rescued, throngs line the block, gawking and claiming ignorance. Among them is a lifelong resident, Miss Metropolitan, advice columnist for the local weekly. But how could one who fancies herself a newspaper woman have missed the horror story unfolding right across the street? And why is it that only 2 of the 3 girls, now women, were found? The mystery haunts the 2 remaining victim girls who are subjected to the further trauma of becoming symbols as they continuously adapt to their present and unrelenting past. And we all know those kidnapping stories where all of a sudden these people have been kidnapped and they're freed, and all of a sudden those people are doing every interview and they're telling their story over and over, and they can't really get back to what a normal life is. A couple of them even got on to write books about the experience. There was one where I think 3 of the people wrote books about the experience. So what is it like for those people, and what is it like for this person who actually missed what was going on so close to her? Next, we've got Lost and Found Family by Jennifer Ryan. This is coming out on July 6th. It'll be coming out in paperback, first in paperback. As Sarah Anderson drives up the coast in Carmel, she knows she's on an impossible quest to make peace with the one person who truly hates her. For years, Sarah has hidden the truth about her laced husband's lies from their children and their grandmother. When her mother-in-law, Margaret, threatens her with legal action to see the boys, Sarah strikes a bargain. She'll bring them for a 6-week visit, hoping the boys at least will find a connection and happiness with their extended family. Doesn't help that the attorney and part-time rancher Luke Thompson lives right across the street, right next door, not across the street, right next door. And as an old friend of the family, he's agreed to investigate Sarah's past. Luke doesn't feel comfortable poking around the very successful tech CEO's private life. What he finds is a truth very different from the one he's been led to believe. Far from being cold and unloving, Sarah is devoted to her boys and as at home on the ranch as she is in the boardroom. All Sarah ever wanted was a family, and all Luke ever wants now is her love. So there we've got a very interesting story, really summer related too. Next, we've got Shoulder Season by Christina Clancy. I am hoping to talk to Christina to do an interview. I've been watching her on social media for the last year and would really like to connect. The premise of this book is just so much fun. It's on sale July 6th. In the small town of Lake Geneva, Wisconsin is an unlikely location for a Playboy resort. And 19-year-old Sherry Taylor is an unlikely bunny. Growing up in neighboring East Troy, she plays the organ at the local church. She's never felt comfortable in her own skin. When her parents die in quick succession, she leaves the only home she's ever known for the chance to be part of a glamorous slice of history. In the winter of 1981, Sherry joins the daughters of dairy farmers and factory workers for the defining experience of her life. Living in the bunny hutch, love that term, the bunny hutch, Playboy's version of a college dorm, Sherry gets her education, the joys of sisterhood, the thrills of financial independence, the magic of first love, and the heady effects of sex, drug, and rock and roll. But as the spring gives way to summer, she finds herself caught in a romantic triangle, and the tragedy that ensues will haunt her for the next 40 years. And I don't think it's about playing the organ at the local church either. So there we got Shoulder Season, another great cover. Now we're going to do some historical fiction. Got The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. I know I spoke about this book before, but I want to make sure it's on your radar because it's coming up very soon on June 29th. In the 1920s, Belle DeCosta Green is hired by J.P. Morgan to curate a collection of rare manuscripts, books, and artwork for his newly built Pierpont Morgan Library. Belle becomes a fixture on the New York society scene and one of the most powerful people in the art and book world, known for her impeccable taste and shrewd negotiating for critical works as she helps build a world-class collection. She has a secret, one that she has to protect at all costs. She was not born Belle DeCosta Green, but Belle Marion Greener. She's the daughter of Richard Greener, the first Black graduate of Harvard and a well-known advocate for equality. Belle's complexion isn't dark because of her alleged Portuguese heritage that lets her pass as white. Her complexion is dark because she's African American. Really lots of buzz around this book. A lot of people are talking about how she discovered the story, and also Marie writing with a different author and writing for a different publisher this time. So I think it's one that we really want to take a deep look at. I'll try and see if we can get Marie for an interview as well. Marie and Victoria both. Next, we've got Island Queen by Vanessa Riley. I was so happy to hear Vanessa talk about this book when I did an event for HarperCollins William Morrow back in early March for Women's History Month. This is Vanessa's first book of historical fiction. It's coming on July 6th. She was noted before for writing romance, and what she has done here is made this total flip, and she is in love with writing historical fiction and can't see herself stopping writing it. What we've got here is born into slavery on the tiny Caribbean island of Montserrat. Doll bought her freedom and that of her sister and her mother from her Irish planter father, and built a legacy of wealth and power as an entrepreneur, merchant, hotelier, and planter that extended from the marketplaces and sugar plantations of Dominica and Barbados to a glittering luxury hotel in Demerara on the South American continent. Doll rises above the harsh realities of slavery and colonialism by working the system and leveraging the competing attentions of the men in her life: a restless shipping merchant, Joseph Thomas; a wealthy planter hiding a secret, John Kosovolt Sells; and a roguish naval captain who will later become King William IV of England. Very, very rich story. It's a big story. It's a lot. She's just done a deep dive on this. And I think that people are going to be really interested in reading it. Something different. It's part of the world we haven't heard that much about. Now we're going to dive into thrillers and mysteries, and we're going to lead off with The President's Daughter by Bill Clinton and James Patterson. Yes, Bill Clinton and James Patterson are writing together again. It is on sale this week. Matthew Keating, a one-time Navy SEAL and a past president, has always defended his family as staunchly as he has his country. Now those defenses are under attack. A madman abducts Keating's teenage daughter Melanie, turning every parent's deepest nightmare into a matter of national security. As the world watches in real time, Keating embarks on a one-man special ops mission that tests his strengths as a leader, a warrior, and a father. And remember something that Mark Sullivan said to me about James Patterson, what he learned from writing with him through the years. If it doesn't propel the content forward, then it's out. Everything's got to make the story move. So I'm sure it's at work here in this book as well. Next, we've got The Disappearing Act by Catherine Steadman. It's on sale this week also. It's part of our summer reading feature. Once a year, actors from across the globe descend on the smog and sunshine of Los Angeles for pilot season. Every cable network and studio is looking to fill the rosters of their new shows, enticing a fresh batch of young hopefuls. I'll also share this. My friends in Hollywood say it is also the month where all the shrinks in town, all the psychiatrists are on speed dial because everybody needs to talk about what's going on, whether a show is being cut or made or where they're trying to get onto. Very interesting story my friend Mindy shared. Got a big kick out of it. British star Mia Elliott has landed leading roles in costume dramas in her native country, but now it's time for Hollywood to take her to the next level. One day she meets Emily, another actress from out of town, in a kindred spirit. Emily is friendly and genuine and reassuringly doesn't seem to be taking any of it seriously. But a simple favor takes a dark twist when Emily disappears, and Mia realizes she was the last person to see her. And when a woman knocks on Mia's door the following day, claiming to be Emily, and the woman not the woman that Maria remembers at all, Mia's deeply troubled. All Mia has to go on is the memory of the girl she met only once and the suffocating feeling that something terrible has happened. So this might be the ultimate actor disappearing act. Next, from the author of The Silent Patient, you all remember that book. It was New York Times bestseller. It was an instant New York Times bestseller. His new book is The Maidens. It's coming from Celadon Books on June 15th. The premise here is Edward Fosca is a murderer. Of this, Mariana is certain, but Fosca is untouchable, a handsome and charismatic Greek tragedy professor at Cambridge University. Fosca is adored by staff and students alike, particularly by members of a secret society of female students known as the Maidens. Mariana Andros is a brilliant but troubled group therapist who's become fixated on the Maidens when one member, a friend of Mariana's niece Zoe, is found murdered in Cambridge. Mariana quickly suspects something sinister, and she becomes convinced that despite his alibi, Edward Fosca is guilty of murder. When another body is found, Mariana's obsession with proving Fosca's guilt spirals out of control, threatening to destroy her credibility as well as her closest relationships. But she's determined to stop this killer, even if it costs us everything, even her own life. This is a big book for Alex, and I'm hoping to talk to him. They've been talking to me about interviewing him, so we're going to see if we can get that lined up in the next couple of weeks. Next, we've got Dream Girl by Laura Lippman. It's coming on June 22nd. Injured in a freak fall, novelist Jerry Anderson is confined to a hospital bed in his glamorous high-rise apartment, dependent on two women he barely knows, his incurious young assistant and a dull, slow-witted night nurse. Then late one night, the phone rings. The caller claims to be the real Aubrey, the alluring title character from his most successful novel, Dream Girl. But there's no real Aubrey. She's a figment born of a writer's imagination, despite what many people believe or claim to know. Could the cryptic caller be one of his 3 ex-wives, playing a vindictive trick after all these years? Or is she Margot, an ex-girlfriend who keeps trying to insinuate her back into Jerry's life? And why does no one believe that the call even happened? Isolated at the world, drowsy from medication, Jerry slips between reality and a dreamlike state in which he's haunted by his own past. And now here's Aubrey threatening to visit him, suggesting that she is owed something. Is the threat real or is it a sign of dementia? Which scenario would he prefer? This is glimpses of so many other books in it, like the thoughts of it coming at me. And yesterday I got this package. I should brought it over here. This like package with the book, and it has like Dream Girl as an eye mask, which I'm like crazy about because I can't stand with any kind of light when I'm sleeping. So Dream Girl mask is going to come in very handy. And pretzels that I'm very glad and very proud of myself that I have not dipped into yet. like, I want to take a picture, do one of those great shots, those Instagram shots. So as a result, those are still on my desk, shockingly. Next, we've got The Fiance from Kate White. This is coming on June 29th. This is one of our spring reading selections. It's a book reporter bets on. And yes, I'm going to be talking to Kate. Kate and I have a little bit of a history together. We both worked at Mademoiselle magazine years ago. Kate went on to work at a number of other magazines, including she became the editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan. So we have lots of great stories that we've shared through the years. This is a novel from her coming on June 29th. Here, Summer is looking forward to a break from hustling for acting work in Manhattan when she, her husband Gabe, and Gabe's 9-year-old son arrive at the annual family get-together at her in-laws' sprawling estate. This is an event that everybody looks forward to every year. But this year, Gabe's brother Nick has invited his new flame, Hannah, whom Summer immediately recognizes from a few years before. Oddly, her brother-in-law's girlfriend claims not to know her, and she is completely obsessed. She's completely obsessed with trying to figure out like what's going on, because Summer knows that something is up with this woman. She's making these clandestine calls to people who are in the acting class where she met this woman. And she's just trying to say, like, what is going on? I know this woman. Why is she pretending to not know me? So she's charming the other family members. And after Nick announces that he's proposed to Hannah, Summer doesn't have much choice to grin and bear it. She's trying to tell everybody, beware of this girl. But now he said that, oh, she's got to back off. But the reunion is rocked by a tragedy when a family member is found dead. Though doctors attribute the loss to natural causes, Summer doesn't fear, she fears the too good to be true Hannah is involved, even as Gabe dismisses her suspicions. So what's really going on with The Fiance? And it's a book that Megan Miranda calls a tense, fast-paced, captivating thriller. Next, we've got The House Guest by Emily Richards. It's on sale on June 29th. In the wake of her husband's sudden death, Cassie Costas finds her relationship with her teenage stepdaughter unraveling. After they move to historic Tarpon Springs, Florida, Savannah hates her new town, her school, and most of all, her stepmom, whom she blames for her father's death. Cassie has enough to contend with as she searches for answers about the man she shared a life with, including why all their savings has disappeared. When Savannah's rebellion culminates in an act that leaves single mother Amber Blair and her 16-year-old son homeless, Cassie empathizes with the woman's predicament and invites the strangers to move in. As their lives intertwine, Cassie realizes that Amber is hiding something. She's evasive about her past, but fear is in her eyes, telling a darker story. Cassie wonders what the woman living under her roof is running from and what will happen if it finally catches up to her. So there we've got The House Guests. Next, from Riley Sager, we've got Survive the Night, coming on June 29th. Josh Baxter, the man behind the wheel, is a virtual stranger to Charlie. They met at a campus ride board, each looking to share the long drive home to Ohio. Both have good reasons for wanting to get away. For Charlie, it's guilt and grief over the shocking murder of her best friend, who became the third victim of a man known as the campus killer. For Josh, it's to help care for his sick father, or so he says. The longer she sits in the passenger seat, the more Charlie notices there's something suspicious about Josh, from the holes in his story about his father to how he doesn't want her to see what's in the trunk. So as they travel on this empty, twisty highway in the dead of night, an increasingly anxious Charlie begins to think she's sharing a car with the campus killer. Is Josh truly dangerous? Or is Charlie jittery mistrust merely a figment of the movie-fueled imagination that she has? One thing is certain, Charlie has nowhere to run and no way to call for help. She's trapped in a terrifying game of cat and mouse, played out on pitch black roads and the neon parking lots. Charlie knows that the only way to win is to survive the night. Once again, another great cover. Love what they did with this. And you know that the eyes there's something going on with those two letters. It's got to be a clue. I don't know what it is, but it's a clue. Bet. Oh, 3 eyes. Ooh, 3 clues. Okay, now we've got Falling by TJ Newman. I am crazy about this book. Absolutely love it. It's a book reporter bets on selection. Also, I am looking forward to talking to TJ. Book's coming out on July 6th. Here's the premise. You just boarded a flight to New York. There are 143 other passengers on board. What you don't know is 30 minutes before the flight, your pilot's family was kidnapped. For his family to live, everyone on the plane must die. The only way the family will survive is if the pilot follows his orders and crashes the plane. Enjoy the flight. So this has got this great premise built up to it. It's a #1 indie pick. It's a fast read. It's one of those one sit, one day reads. Such a great job on this. TJ is a former flight attendant for Alaska Airlines, and she used to spend her breaks, when they used to go back to the break rooms in the back of the plane, she was writing notes and writing her book there. She had a number of rejections from agents to try to get this book out there in the world. I think it's something like it's either 21 or 41, something really big of trying to get somebody to even pay attention to this book. And look at the claim that's getting now. And it's also been adapted for a movie. So you've got something really great going. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The way, I'm not going to say anymore, but it's really cool to see what happens with everybody on the plane. And I dare you to read it getting on a plane. My son Greg was heading out of town when I was reading it, and he says, I'm not taking that one. He was like, forget about it. That wouldn't be a good thing to read as you fly. Next, we've got Sleeping Bear from Connor Sullivan, which is coming on July 6th. I'm bringing this up because Connor is also the son of Mark Sullivan. This is his debut thriller, and he has got writing chops just like his dad. After her young husband's untimely death, Army veteran Cassie Gale decides to take a few days of solitude in the Alaska wilderness before she starts her new job. But when she fails to show up on her first day and her dog is discovered injured at a wrecked campsite, her father knows that this is much more than a camping trip gone awry. As it turns out, Cassie is not the first person to disappear without a trace in Alaska's northern interior. Regaining consciousness in a Russian prison, Cassie finds herself entrapped in a system designed to ensure that no one escapes alive. It will require all her grit and skills to survive. Meanwhile, her father rushes to outrun the clock, scouring thousands of acres, only to realize she's been taken by a far more nefarious adversary, one with the power of the Eastern Bloc behind it. Ties to his past, one full of secrets, threaten to surface. He knows there's a price to be paid, but he's determined it won't be his daughter. So there's the first book from Connor Sullivan. Next, we've got The Stranger Behind You by Carol Goodman, also coming on June 6th. Journalist Joan Lurie has written a seething article exposing a notorious newspaper tycoon as a sexual predator. But the night it goes live, she's brutally attacked, prompting her to move into a highly secure apartment called The Refuge, which at one time was the Magdalene Laundry. She should be safe there. Lillian Day is Joan's new 96-year-old neighbor at The Refuge. In 1941, Lillian witnessed a mysterious murder that sent her into hiding at the Magdalene Laundry. As she relates to Joan her harrowing story, Joan sees striking similarities to her own past. Then we've got Melissa Osgood has burning questions about her husband's recent death. When she discovers a suspicious paper trail that he left behind, she realizes how little she knew about her marriage. But it seems that Joan might be the one that has all the answers. These three lives intersect. Each woman must stay one step ahead of those who are desperate to make sure the truth is never uncovered. So we've got The Stranger Behind You. And we've got The Stranger in the Mirror. And we did not put those books in the same order, but just note that both the Stranger books are out on July 6th. Addison is about to get married, but she's not looking forward to the big day. It's not her fiance. He's a wonderful man. It's because Addison doesn't know who she really is. A few years ago, a kind driver found her bleeding next to a New Jersey highway and rescued her. While her physical wounds have healed, her memory never returned. She doesn't know her real name, or how she ended up injured on the side of the road, or why she can't shake the notion that she may have done something very, very bad. In a posh home in the Boston suburbs, Julian tries to figure out what happened to his loving, caring wife, Cassandra, who disappeared without a trace 2 years ago. She would never have left him and their 7-year-old daughter, Valentina, of her own free will, or would she? So we've got The Stranger in the Mirror. Liv Constantine, remember, are two sisters that write together. So there's a little background on them. And we've got memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. Not many this time of year. This usually summer's devoted to beach read kind of fiction, fast thrillers, things along those lines. But we've got The Woman They Could Not Silence by Kate Moore coming on June 22nd. It's 1860 as the clash between states roils to a boil. Elizabeth Packard, housewife and mother of 6, is facing her own battle. The enemy sits across the table and sleeps in the next room. It's her husband of 21 years is plotting against her because he feels increasingly threatened. by her intellect, independence, and willingness to stifle her own thoughts. So he makes a plan to put her back in place. One summer morning, he has her confined to an insane asylum. Remember, folks, this is a true story. The horrific conditions inside the prison in Jacksonville, Illinois, are overseen by Dr. Andrew McFarland, a man who will prove to be even more dangerous to Elizabeth than her traitorous husband. But more disturbing is the fact that Elizabeth is not the only woman confined to the institution. There are many other rational women on her ward who tell the same story, conveniently labeled crazy, so their lives are ignored. No one is willing to fight for their freedom, and disenfranchised by both gender and the stigma of their supposed madness, they cannot possibly fight for themselves. But Elizabeth is about to discover that the merit of losing everything is that you have nothing to lose. So these women are going to go fight for themselves. She is going to get her freedom, and then we're going to see what happens for her next. Big story that Kate kind of just tripped upon and then started doing research and decided it was one she just had to write. Next, we've got The Comfort Book by Matt Haig, and many may recognize his name because he's the author of Midnight Library. Here, it's nonfiction, coming on July 6th. Years ago, Matt Haig began writing notes to his future self. These notes were meant as gifts to his future self, offerings of hope to help him through anything from the darkest periods of his life to a not-so-great day. As time went on, he added new thoughts and stories, and he turned them into The Comfort Book so that everyone could draw on this well of reassurance and encouragement. Even each of its short meditations give a new perspective on life and all its highs and lows. Small islands of hope for anyone looking for a more fulfilling, more uplifting way through life. Incorporating a diverse array of sources from across the world, history, science, and his own experiences, Haig offers warmth and reassurance, reminding us to slow down and appreciate the beauty and unpredictability of existence. This is a slim book. I bet this is a book could be shared with a number of people, and it's my favorite color, turquoise. I may just have to get this. Next, we've got Fox and I, An Uncommon Friendship from Catherine Raven. It's coming on July 6th from a new imprint, Spiegel and Grau. It was around for a while as part of Random House, and now Spiegel and Grau, these two women are off on their own. When Catherine Raven finished her PhD in biology, she built herself a tiny cottage on an isolated plot of land in Montana. She was as emotionally isolated as she was physically, but she viewed the house as a way station, temporary rest stop, where she'd gather her nerves and fill out applications for what she hoped would be a real job that would help her to fit into society. In the meantime, she taught remotely and led field classes in the nearby Yellowstone National Park. And then one day she realized that a mangy fox was showing up on her property every afternoon at 4:15 p.m. She never had a regular visitor before. How to even talk to a fox? She brought out her little camping chair, sat as close to him as she dared, and began reading to him from The Little Prince. Her scientific training had taught her not to anthropomorphize animals, which means you don't to make animals feel like they're people. You're not supposed to take the fox, want him to come into your house and have lunch with him. You're supposed to remember that is an animal, and you're not to give them any kind of human qualities. But yet, as she grew to know him, his personality revealed himself, and they became friends. From the fox, she learned the single most important thing about loneliness. We are never alone when we're connected to the natural world. Friends, however, cannot save each other from the uncontained forces of nature. I've heard her speak about this book a number of times, absolutely passionate about it. When Sydney Spiegel found it, she was she was like just looking for a book, she was looking for books for her first line. And this one came across, and she just sat there and said, this has got to be the first book that we do. So there you've got Fox and I, very, very different book, but one author's completely passionate about. Next, we've got some August titles to look forward to. Like I said, it's a big summer. Next, we've got from Sandra Brown, Blind Tiger. This has got some historical background. It's not a present-day thriller, which is what Sandra's done in the past. It's coming on August 3rd. Thatcher Hutton, a war-weary soldier on the way back to his cowboy life, jumps from a moving freight train to avoid trouble and lands in more than he bargained for. On the day he arrives in Foley, Texas, a local woman goes missing. Thatcher, the only stranger in town, is suspected of her abduction and worse. Standing between him and exoneration are a corrupt mayor, a crooked sheriff, a notorious cat house madam, a sly bootlegger, fending moonshiners, and a young widow whose soft features conceal an iron will. What was supposed to be a fresh start for Laura Plummer turns into tragedy. Left destitute but determined to dictate her own future, Laurel plunges into the lucrative regional industry, which, much to the dislike of the good old boys who have always ruled supreme. Her success quickly makes her the target for cutthroat competitors whose only code of law is reprisal. As violence erupts, Laurel and now Deputy Thatcher find themselves on opposite sides of the moonshine war, where blood flows freely as the whiskey. Sandra is such a lovely person. I've met her a number of times. And one time I met her with my son, Greg, and he said he was thinking of writing a thriller that was set on a cruise ship. And he goes, I'm trying to figure out how to get the action going. Sandra looked at him and he goes, stop in many ports, Greg. They stop in many ports. That's where the action's going to happen. So I've never forgotten that line from her. And she's one of these people that knows how to take the action and move it ahead. Next, we've got Damnation Spring coming from Ash Davidson. This is a hugely talked about book that's coming August 3rd. For generations, Rich Gunderson's family has chopped off a livelihood out of redwood forest along California's rugged coast. Now, Rich and his wife, Colleen, are raising their own young son near Damnation Grove, a swath of ancient redwoods on which Rich's employer, Sanderson Timber Company, plans to make a killing. In 1977, with most of the forest cleared or protected, a grove like Damnation, all beyond it, the 24/7 ridge is a logger's dream. When the opportunity arises to buy 24/7 ridge, costing them all the savings that they've squirreled away for their family, Rich grabs it, unbeknownst to Colleen. Because the reality is their family isn't growing. She's lost several pregnancies, and she isn't alone. A midwife, Colleen, has seen it with her own eyes. For decades, the herbicides the logging company uses were considered harmless, but Colleen is no longer so sure. What if these miscarriages aren't isolated strokes of bad luck? Her search for answers threatens to unravel not just Rich's plans for 24/7, but their marriage too. I've heard Ash speak about this book number of times. It just has a beautiful cover. It looks like it was drawn as a piece of art, just lovely. And Ash has actually lived in a lumbering area when she was growing up. And she went back to research this book. And when she went back, she spoke I think it was a church supper or something, where some people recognized her mother. And she told them what she was doing. And one of the people said, I'll speak to you, but we have to go outside. So there are lots of secrets that are happening in these logging areas of what has been going on with herbicides. And she said to this day, no one in her family drinks water out of the tap. They all drink bottled water. So there's this real feeling of what has gone on in the water because of what's going on with the logging companies. Next, from Chevy Stevens, who is an author that we haven't heard from in years, and it's so nice to be welcoming her back, is Dark Roads. It's coming on August 3rd. Isolated and vast, the Cold Creek Highway has become a prime hunting ground for predators. For decades, young women traveling the road have gone missing. No killer or abductor who has stalked the highway has ever been brought to justice. Haley McBride calls Cold Creek home. Her father taught her to respect nature, how to live and survive off the land, and to never travel the highway alone. Now he's gone, leaving her teenage orphan in the care of her aunt, whose police officer husband uses his badge as a means to bully and control Haley. Overwhelmed by grief and forbidden to work, socialize, or date, Haley vanishes into the mountain terrain, hoping everyone will believe she's left town. Rumors spread that she was taken by the highway killer who claimed another victim over the summer. A year later, Beth Chevalier arrives in Cold Creek, where her sister Amber lived and where she was murdered. Estranged from her parents and seeking closure, Beth takes a waitressing job at the local diner, just as Amber did, desperate to understand what happened to her and why. But Beth's search for answers puts a target on her back and threatens to reveal the truth behind Haley's disappearance. So we've got Dark Woods from Chevy Stevens. She's always written a really good book in the past. Looking forward to see what she's doing after a long break. Then we've got The Husbands by Chandler Baker. It's coming on August 3rd. We're actually doing a promotion for this on Reading Group Guides. So anybody who's in a book club, go out and take a look at that, because there's an opportunity to win 10 copies of this book. and also an opportunity to speak with Chandler, to have your book interact with Chandler. There's some rules on how to apply, what to do. We're looking for 15 groups to do this. So Chandler Baker's last book was Whisper Network, which I really enjoyed as well. Read this one in advance. Nora Spangler is a successful attorney, but when it comes to domestic life, she packs the lunches, schedules the doctor's appointments, knows where the extra paper towel rolls are, and designs and orders the holiday cards. Her husband works hard too, but why does it seem like she's always working so much harder? What are we seeing here? So Spanglers go house hunting in Dynasty Ranch, an exclusive suburban neighborhood. Nora meets a group of high-powered women with enviable, supportive husbands. When she agrees to help with a resident's wrongful death case, she's pulled into the lives of these women there. She finds the air is different in Dynasty Ranch. The women aren't hanging on by a thread. They have husbands that are taking the kids' places. They've got help in the kitchen. Somebody else is doing the dishes. But as the case unravels, Nora uncovers a plot that may explain the secret to having it all, one that's worth killing for. Calling to mind a Stepford Wives gender swap, the husband imagines a world where the burdens of the second shift is equally shared and what it must take to get there. Just remember that you've read a lot of books where things happen where? In the exclusive suburban neighborhood. So this is another one that's just like that. Next, we've got The Turnout from Megan Abbott. Many of you may know her from her book, Dare Me, that was adapted to a television series and was very, very, very well done. Megan was, I believe, one of the executive producers, and I think she might have written the scripts for that as well. It's coming on August 3rd. Dara and Marie Durant have been dancers since birth. Growing up, they were homeschooled and trained by their glamorous mother, founder of the Durant School of Dance. After their parents' death in a tragic accident nearly a dozen years ago, the sisters begin running the school together, along with Charlie, Dara's husband, and they're once their mother's prized student. Marie is warm and soft, and she teaches the younger students. Dara, with her precision, trains the older ones, and Charlie, his back broken after years of injuries, rules over the back office. Circling one another, the three have perfected a dance of their own, 6 days a week, that keeps the studio thriving. But when a suspicious accident occurs, just on the onset of the school's annual performance of The Nutcracker, a season of competition, anxiety, and exhilaration, an interloper arrives and threatens the sisters' delicate balance. Now, you know, if it was going to happen during any dance, it was going to happen during the Nutcracker. Any book that talks about dance, it's always the Nutcracker is where everything completely implodes itself. So here we've got, let's see what's going to happen this time. Next, we've got We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang. It's coming on August 3rd. 29-year-old Sunday Brennan wakes up in a Los Angeles hospital, bruised and battered after a drunk driving accident she caused. She swallows her pride, and she goes home to her family in New York, but it's not easy. She deserted them all. And her high school sweetheart 5 years before with little explanation, and they've got big questions. She's determined to rebuild her life on the East Coast, even if it does mean tiptoeing around her resentful brothers and an ex-fiancé. But the longer she stays, the more she realizes they need her just as much as she needs him, that she needs them. When a dangerous man from her past threatens to bring her family's pub business to the brink of financial ruin, the only way to protect them is to upend all their secrets that have damaged their family for generations and will threaten everything they know about their lives. In the aftermath, the Brennan family is forced to confront painful mistakes and ultimately find a way forward together. Really looking forward to reading this one. I've been hearing great things about it. And we've got The Last Mona Lisa coming from Jonathan Santlifer, and I'm really looking forward to this. Jonathan's last book was nonfiction. It was The Widower's Handbook, and I think you might remember that book because it was a bets on for me, and I actually interviewed him at a local store out here in Maplewood, New Jersey, Ward's Bookstore. And he just was so interesting to talk to about his whole experience about having lost his wife. Very, very poignant book. Now he's back with The Lost Mona Lisa, and it's interesting because Jonathan is an artist as well. He's a brilliant painter. He does beautiful sketches on, they post on Facebook all the time, and his eye is just amazingly good. So the fact that he's writing about The Last Mona Lisa is very interesting to me. It's coming out on August 17th. On August 1911, the Mona Lisa is stolen by Vincent Perugia. Exactly what happened in the 2 years before its recovery is a mystery. Many replicas of the Mona Lisa exist, and more than one historian has wondered if the painting now returned to the Louvre is a fake, switched in 1911. In present day, art professor Luc Perron digs for truth behind his most famous ancestor, Perugia. His search attracts a local Interpol detectives with something to prove and an unfamiliar but curiously helpful woman. Soon, Luke tumbles deep into the world of art and forgery, a land of obsession and danger. Enjoyed Jonathan's thrillers in the past, marrying it with the art world right now. I have a funny feeling this is going to be something spectacular. Next, from William Kent Kruger, who is a dear friend of all of us at Bookreporter.com, author of This Tender Land, we've got Lightning Strike. It's coming on August 24th. And what's different about this book is a prequel to his Cork O'Connor series, a series that I believe now has 17 books in it. This is the book that when he was writing it, he was like, well, why don't I do a prequel at this point? Just know with any of Kent's books, you can drop in and still have a robust story. But what a gift right now to have a prequel that you can then go on and read the whole story from. He's going to look back at his main character as a young child. Aurora is a small town nestled in the ancient forests along Minnesota's Iron Lake. In the summer of 1963, the whole world is it is the whole world to 12-year-old Cork O'Connor, its rhythms as familiar as his own heartbeat. But when Cork stumbles upon a body of a man he revered hanging from a tree in an abandoned logging camp, it is the first in a series of events that will cause him to question everything he took for granted about his hometown, his family, and himself. Cork's father, Liam O'Connor, is the Aurora sheriff, and it's his job to confirm the man's death was a result of suicide, as all the evidence suggests. In the shadow of his father's official investigation, Cork begins to look for answers on his own. And together, father and son face the ultimate test of choosing between what their heads tell them is true and what their hearts know is right. We know that Ken has done a fabulous job of writing young teenage characters in the past with This Tender Land. So we want to see what he's going to do here. And for readers who are longtime readers of the series, it's a great way to start. And for those who haven't read it before, it's going to be in that same tone as This Tender Land and Ordinary Grace, his two standalone novels. A real treat to be getting this one on August 24th. From Elise Penny, we've got The Madness of Crowds. Look at that spectacular cover. I mean, I just wish I had that piece of art to frame. It's just so great. Coming on August 24th, it's got Chief Inspector Armand Gamache is asked to provide security for what promises to be a non-event. A visiting professor of statistics will be giving a lecture at the nearby university. While he's perplexed as to why the head of homicide would be assigned to this task, it sounds easy enough. That is still, Gamache starts looking into Professor Abigail Robinson, discovers an agenda so repulsive, he begs the university to cancel the lecture. They refuse, citing academic freedom, and accuse Gamache of censorship and intellectual cowardice. Before long, Professor Robinson's views start seeping into conversations that truth and fact, reality and delusion are so confused, it's nearly impossible to tell them apart. Discussions become debates. Debates become arguments, which turn into fights. As sides are declared, a madness takes hold. When a murder is committed, it falls to Gamache and his second-in-command Jingai and their team to investigate the crime, as well as this extraordinary popular delusion. So he's got The Madness of Crowds with a very mad-looking cover. And then from Paul Hawkins, we've got A Slow Burning. Now, you may remember Paul Hawkins' name. She wrote that tiny book, The Girl on the Train, the book that so many books have said later, it's just like The Girl on the Train. Well, Paul Hawkins is back with A Slow Fire Burning and not like The Girl on the Train. When a young man is found gruesomely murdered in a London houseboat, it triggers questions about the three women who knew him. War's troubled one-night stand last seen at the victim's home. Carla and his grief-stricken aunt is already mourning the recent death of yet another family member. And Miriam is the nosy neighbor, clearly keeping secrets from the police. Three women with three separate connections to the victim. Three women who are, for different reasons, simmering with resentment. Who are they, and whether they know it or not, burning to the right wrongs done to them? What's going on? When it comes to revenge, even good people might be capable of terrible deeds. How far might one of them go to find peace? How long can secrets smolder before they explode into flame? So there we've got Slow Fire Burning coming from Paula. want to see what she's going to do this time. I've heard her talking about this book and I'm very intrigued. Might get myself an advance copy. This is our recent Book Reporter Talks to videos. This is who we've been talking to recently. We've got Mark Sullivan, we've got Sally Hepworth, Lisa Scottolini, Jean Korlitz, Pam Janoff, and Laura Dave. And had such fun talking to these people. By the way, if you want to drop into the chat what you've been reading recently, I meant to say that at the beginning. If you want to drop in, we'd love to see what you're been excited about. And also, wait, next, no, that's the wrong thing, brought it up. Also, these are my 24 books, bets on book selections so far this year. Yes, we're up to 24. Remember, there's no particular number that I do. It's just books that have intrigued me along the way. So these are the 24 that we've packed together. And I tell you, when I go back and I look at them, I'm looking at each and seeing why I would still recommend them. Sometimes you sit there and say, oh, why did I do that? Each of these books I would definitely still recommend you read. And for those who are joining us live, one second. We also want to remind you that we've got our next Bookaccino live book group event on June 24th at 8:00 p.m. where Julie Clark, the author of The Last Flight, a book that many of you loved. We saw this trending so well on word of mouth through the years. Last year, it's now out in paperback. Julie's absolutely terrific. So much fun to talk to. And The Last Flight is a really super well done book. If you'd like to be one of the people who is interviewing her on stage with me, it means you got to be on camera, folks. Either that or you can give me your question to ask her. Just shoot me a note at carol@bookreporter.com and tell me the question you would want to ask her. If not, you can just sign up to join us that night. Sign up is on both Book Reporter and Reading Group guides, links on the right-hand side of the page. Julie's just so much fun. I hope you can join us live. I saw an event that Julie did with Laura Dave a couple of weeks ago. They're both neighbors in Santa Monica, and it was fun to see them trading stories back and forth. So this is also the Target Book Club pick. So Julie's done so many great things with this book. Once again, it was on the New York Times list in hardcover and again in paperback, which is truly delightful. And our next Bookaccino live event, which will have July 13th through August 3rd books and a peek ahead at September, is going to be on Wednesday, July 14th at 2:00 in the afternoon. And the sign up will be live later today. Knowing Tom Donadio, our editorial director extraordinaire, who helps me put together these presentations and edits everything that we're putting up. The sign up is probably going to be live like any minute, knowing how on top of things he is. So yes to maintaining virtual. We're all in as long as you are as well. So thanks so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next time for Bookaccino. Thanks so much.